Hello, welcome to the Santa Barbara House of Prayer series on the commands of Jesus.
Yeah.
I look at the commands of Jesus not really as commands like I command you. I see it as strategy, literally life strategies. They are strategies for living life and living it well. And if we put these strategies into practice, we will live well. That's why they're so amazing. So this week is Mark 8:15, and it's following last week's verse about the yeast of the Pharisees and of Herod. So I'm going to read it. And Jesus repeatedly and expressly charged and admonished them, saying, "Look out, keep on your guard, and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod and the Herodians." So I use the Amplified Bible. And in the Amplified, it includes not just Herod, but the Herodians as well. And that was really interesting. And Jorah talked about the yeast of the Pharisees last week, being hypocrisy. And I've heard and listened to this verse a lot over the years. And I've always, for some reason, just focus on the Pharisee part because I understand what that means. The leaven of the Pharisees, I know that leaven. And it's hypocrisy, but it's also this, it's this elite status. It's this man-made system and structure that is meant to bring people under it. And the people in the authority of this structure were the Pharisees. And it was a man-made system. And they were supposed to, well, I don't know about supposed to, but they were meant to represent God to the people because they were the ones that were studying the law and they knew the scriptures and they spent time praying and whatever they were doing. But really, they didn't represent God to the people. They misrepresented God to the people. And so if you go then to the leaven of Herod and the Herodians, it is quite interesting because even the fact that they're mentioned together in this verse, they work together. And I wanted to find out who the Herodians were. So I briefly looked it up, and it was very interesting because Herod had a following, and they were the Herodians. And they looked to him as kind of the Messiah, almost like this false Messiah, that he was the one that would solve all their problems, save them from everything. And he had, an authority. He was the political authority in that age. The Pharisees were the religious authority in that age, but they worked together. And I read that they didn't get along. Herod and the Pharisees didn't get along. They actually didn't like each other at all, but they found this common ground and they started working together. And the common ground was they both were opposed to Jesus. They were against Jesus. So you have the religious system that the Pharisees were in charge of and the leaders of. And then you have this political system that Herod was the authority of. And guess what? Not only were they man-made systems that were flawed and askewed, but actually behind those systems were spirits. So when I look at this, I see a religious spirit and a political spirit working together with the Antichrist spirit because they were against Jesus. And that's where they came together and found this common ground. Really interesting. So what is leaven? That was the other thing. I mean, we know what it is, but what is leaven? And I love to look up words and just kind of unpack the word. So I found some interesting definitions of leaven besides the one that we know in the dough that makes it rise. So leaven is something that spreads throughout, causing change. Okay? To spread throughout, causing a change. What? So the leaven of Herod is something, it's a system, it's a mindset, it's something that spreads throughout society and causes a change. But the thing is, it's not a positive change. The other, and this floored me, because the other definition that I read, because I love talking about energies and frequencies and how they work in this physical realm and inside the human body, and I'm not kidding you, this is one of the definitions. of leaven to intermingle and to blend life energy.
Whoa.
What? So the leaven is actually an energy that intermingles in with society. And it's saying it blends with, so God is the life energy. And all energy comes from God because he's the source of life. And so life energy is the energy that sustains all of life, and the leaven intermingles with this life energy. And it kind of looks good, maybe. You know, if it's the religious system, the Pharisees, it looks good because it kind of looks like God. And the political system, it maybe looks good because this political leader is idolized and is going to save everyone and solve everybody's problems and take care of everybody. But really, it's not good. So then I wondered, well, who was Herod? I knew he was the king at the time of Jesus, but really, you know, who was he? Herod Antipas. He was the ruler of the Galilee region at the time of Jesus. And like I said, he had a following, which were the Herodians. And the Herodians literally idolized him. He was an idol to them. And so it created this weird dynamic where Herod was the elite authority. He had the status, and he had all these people that looked to him, kind of like depended on him. And that was really interesting. So Herod represented this political leadership, but he hid behind this facade because it wasn't real. It was all a masquerade. It was all this image that he had to keep up, that he had to look like this great, strong leader, that he had all the answers. He had to look a certain way to maintain that leadership status. And so, I mean, this is really interesting because I see the same thing. This same dynamic is still going on. I'm seeing it literally manifest very clearly right now, because you've got a religious system and a religious spirit, you've got a political system and a political spirit, and you have the Antichrist spirit, and right now they are all three operating together right now in partnership. And you know, when Jesus said beware, look out, like that was a serious thing that he was saying, but he was saying, oh, be on alert, like look out, because these two things, these two spirits and systems, they blend into the society and they're hard to detect. That's why he's saying look out, because one kind of looks like God and looks like it's the right thing, and the other one looks like, oh, it's keeping law, it's keeping order, it's keeping our society running well. But really, it's all a facade. So really, really interesting. And so, you know, the fact that Herod had a following, this is one of the reasons why he started to really despise Jesus. Because Jesus gained a following in a really short amount of time, relatively. He gained this following, and it was a threat to Herod. And, you know, Herod was the one that beheaded John the Baptist, and he didn't even want to behead John the Baptist. And here's the thing. Herod operated with a lot of fear. Not only did he operate in this disingenuous way where he had to maintain this image that he was up on the top and everybody else needed to depend on him, but he operated with fear. He had this fear of man, fear of what other people would think, and he liked John the Baptist. He didn't want to behead John the Baptist because he liked to listen to him, but he said he didn't want to kill him because he was afraid of what the people would do. Because the people thought of him as a prophet, and he was afraid of the people. So he didn't until he was manipulated by his wife. And there again, he didn't want to kill John the Baptist because he knew he was a holy man, but he did it out of fear. Yeah. Because if he didn't follow through with his promise to his wife, to serve his head on a platter, he would have appeared weak in front of the people, and he was afraid of that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, Jesus warned. It was a warning to beware of the leaven of Herod. And so it's pretty serious. And so I feel like, okay, let's be on alert. Let's take this warning seriously, and let's look at where this has blended in and infiltrated our society, and let's separate it out so that we unknowingly aren't following or going under a system that wasn't established by God. So here we go. Herod, his whole motivation in life was to be at the top, to be the leader, to have people following him and under him. Jesus came as a servant. Very, very different. Very, very different. The Pharisees used manipulation and control. They used the scriptures. They used words that sounded very educated. They used words that sounded like God in the scriptures, but really their motive behind their words weren't. And so they used manipulation, control, laws and rules and standards that you have to follow. And if not, God's going to strike you down or put a curse on you. So it was a lot of really, really different spirit and system. And so where the Pharisees manipulated and controlled people, Jesus motivated people. That was the difference.
Come on.
And they both, the Pharisees and Herod, misrepresented God to the people. And the people really wanted to know God. They really wanted to follow the law of the land. And they really did want to have order and organization in their society. They really did. So it wasn't that the people were doing anything wrong. It's almost like they unknowingly came under these systems and didn't realize it. So I'm going to keep going with these differences that I saw. Jesus used love, compassion, and humility to serve people. That's what he did. And he actually was the king. He actually was the one that really had authority, but he came as a servant. And completely different spirit, completely different way of coming in and dealing with people. So, Herod was full of fear. He operated in fear. He made fear-based decisions. And I'm going to read this. This is the fear that we see. As Jesus' ministry became more well-known, Herod Antipas began to fear that John the Baptist had risen from the dead. He had fear. Apparently, he wanted to kill Jesus. And this was reported to Jesus by some Jewish leaders in Galilee. So here we go. Here we see Herod had this fear. That was in Matthew 14. And this is Jesus' response. So Jesus knew, it was reported to him that Herod wanted to kill him because Herod was afraid that it was John the Baptist coming back to get him. Fear. So Jesus knew this, but here's Jesus' response. Jesus, unafraid, replied. Jesus had zero fear. So he had zero fear motivating him or behind anything that he did. Jesus, unafraid, replied to that verse that I just read, "Go tell that fox, I will keep on driving out demons and healing people today and tomorrow and on the third day, and I will reach my goal. I must press on today and tomorrow and the next day." So he kind of had this, he would respond to Herod with kind of lashing back in these words that were pretty controversial. I mean, they were pretty aggressive. Jesus was aggressive with that. But here you see Herod had fear, Jesus had zero fear. And, when Jesus would say these things in public to people, that also kind of is another reason why Herod started to really oppose Jesus more and more and more. And Jesus also accused Herod of being weak. And let's see, Jesus compared Herod to a broken reed shaking in the wind and one who wears soft clothing. That is in Luke. So he accused him of being weak and a fox and afraid. So really, really, really interesting. And they were completely different. The system that Jesus was ushering in was the kingdom, the system of God's kingdom, which is always operated by love. Herod had a kingdom of fear and control and staying at the top and creating these dependents that idolize you and having to keep that image. Really, really different system. Herod hunted for Jesus. It said that he always was hunting for him, but was never successful. And The interesting thing is that, like I said, those three systems work together: the Pharisees, the political, and the Antichrist. And the truth is, what's so amazing is that Jesus has all authority in heaven and on earth. So Jesus's authority and his system actually trumps all of those. It literally just dispels and breaks the power and crumbles all of those. So what I'm really excited about, because I'm looking at this, I'm reading this verse and I'm seeing it play out in today and what we're dealing with, what we're seeing, and I feel like it's becoming obvious. These things are going to become obvious because guess what? The system of the Pharisees, that religious spirit, has infiltrated the church, and it's subtle. That's why Jesus said to beware of it, because it's subtle, because it kind of looks like God, and it may even have some truth because the scriptures are used and the right words are used, but really it's a distortion of the truth, and it actually. When the religious system is operating, that the kingdom system is not operating. They can't operate at the same time. Two things can't be in the same space at the same time. It's impossible. So you're seeing the religious system, you're seeing the political system where there's this idol of someone or some group that's going to solve everyone's problems and save everyone and make the world great and make the world better, but really it's not. A human being, it can't do that. And so the thing with the political system is that you have the top leader or authority, and everybody else depends on that top authority. And then what happens is that the person or the group at the top has to continue to create this illusion that there's problems so that they can continue to solve problems and keep the people dependent on them. So it's really kind of convoluted. So I'm gonna say it again. The religious system, the political system, and the Antichrist are in partnership. And it's all against Jesus, opposing Jesus and the system that Jesus represents. So this is what I feel like is happening and is necessary, is a heightened discernment for us, for the elect, for those of us who belong to Jesus, who are God's children, who represent Jesus on the earth, and who are citizens of the kingdom and therefore under the system of God's kingdom, which is love, which is compassion, which is kindness, which is unity, and those types of things. So I want to pray for heightened discernment, that we would discern the difference and be able to distinguish the difference, and that we would be aware, we would be on guard, we would be on alert, and that if there's any way that we've unknowingly or knowingly partnered with these other systems, that we would take care of that and come under the operating system of God's kingdom. So that's what I'm going to pray. And thank you, Jesus, that you came as a man, fully man on this earth, and you came into this earthly world and realm to establish the kingdom of God and the systems that govern in God's kingdom. Thank you that was what you came to do. So your kingdom is here, your government is here, and of the increase of your government, there will be no end. So even when it doesn't seem like it, the government of Jesus, of whom he is the king, he is the authority, it's increasing, and it's here on the earth, and it's increasing, it's not decreasing. So God, I ask right now for a heightened discernment right now in this age, that we would discern and distinguish between good and evil, between the system of the Pharisees, the religious system, and the political system, and the Antichrist system, that we would distinguish that from your kingdom and your system, that we would see it clearly and distinguish it. And God, give us wisdom and understanding and revelation in how to operate under the system of God's kingdom, under the system of the authority of Jesus, and under his rulership, that we would be the ones to bring in the dominion of Jesus on the earth, to enthrone Jesus in his rightful place as the authority, as the supreme ruler of this earth.